Well, welcome to SuperNova South. Thanks for being here. We're excited about this week's speakers and lineup, and really excited for Andrea coming up. Just wanted to make a few quick announcements. Tonight we have just a quick meet and greet, easy and fun time. It'll be at Public Draft House, which is right next door to the Fox Theater. So that will be from 6 to 9. And then tomorrow we have a really cool design thinking workshop, which is being put on by a professor at the D School, the Stanford D School, and they're also with the Innovation Lab at First Data. So it's going to be a really great, innovating experience. So you should make it out to that. And then Wednesday night we've got our Sharpie Slam event, which is our fun party. It's all about artists, and you'll get to vote on your favorite one, and they get prizes, so it's helpful for them to have you there. So we hope to see you out at all of the evening events. All right. Shireen is going to tell you more about Andrea and introduce her. Thanks.
That was Kashi. She's the executive director. She's been involved with this conference since the beginning, a few name changes ago, I believe. All right, so let me introduce you to Andrea Arena. Andrea took a $5,000 investment and turned it into a multi-million-dollar company with over 130 employees. I think we all aspire to be a little like Andrea. Along the way, she picked up 2 Inc. 500 Fastest Growing Company Awards 2 years in a row. She's been on CNN, HGTV, I'm assuming for your house, but Fox. She's been featured in Business Week, the Wall Street Journal, the Atlanta Business Chronicle, and Catalyst Magazine Top 5 Entrepreneur. Cathy Cox, the Secretary of State, has named her Outstanding Georgia Citizen. I'm also pleased to know her personally. She's a good friend. I joke because Andrea is, she's a baller. She's blingy. She has a Porsche that she wrecked during the snow apocalypse. I tease her a little. So I joke because I drive a Ford Fusion hybrid, but we're still good friends. So I keep her grounded. She keeps me shooting for the stars, which is, of course, perfect to kick off our SuperNova South conference. So we're thrilled and delighted to have her here as our lunch keynote speaker. Andrea?
Hi. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm sick as a dog, but I wouldn't miss this event because, well, I'm personally afraid of Shireen. So, yes, and she knows where I live. Even though it's gated, she'll find a way. I know, I was sitting here listening to what Shireen was saying about me and the company, and I was looking at some of you thinking, I know what they're thinking. I know that some of you are going, oh, Inc. 500, that's kind of cool, like the fastest growing privately held companies in the nation. That's awesome. Some of you have read that I graduated from Georgia Tech. Go Jackets! And that's pretty awesome. But most of you are thinking, she's old. She was born pre-internet. And that is true. There was life before the internet. So more importantly, you might be thinking, how is her story relevant to my story? And I would contend, actually, all of us who have really given 120% to growing our career, all of us have a similar story. Similar enough to be relevant, and perhaps different enough that we can learn from one another's story. So that's what I challenge you with today, is an opportunity to kind of take this journey with me and look for the parallels. Look for the parallels in your story and hopefully be open to some of the learning opportunities. So my story is really about going from $0 in revenue, family not so proud, to a multi-million-dollar company. From going from me saying we a lot to having over 132 employees and over 200 contractors. And why? Why would someone do that? Because, as my mom tells me, a good girl from Georgia Tech gets a good corporate job and you stay in that job and you work that job for 1,000,000 years. Well, I did it because I was passionate about making a difference. My family really always thought that I was going to be a social worker, right? They thought, oh, she's always about taking care of people, right? She's going to be the one who, takes care of one family at a time. But I figured out if I could leverage this vehicle of corporate America to underwrite the cost of our services, I could actually make a positive impact on the daily lives of millions of people. So, of course, I told my family, and my mom said, quick, call the bank, I bet you can get your job back. So kind of knowing that I didn't really have the support of my family, I, went out and decided we needed to do some market research to kind of validate my thinking behind this corporate concierge service. So I started a company that was so corporate concierge, let me tell you a little bit about what that means. It's kind of like an errand service that corporations offer as an employee benefit. So you hardworking people, while you're busy at work, the concierge is going to your house and meeting the plumber. We're taking your car to the shop. We're going to the bank, the post office, doing all of your running around. Because the thought is, everyone has a very finite amount of personal time, right? And my goal is to basically empower you to spend that personal time doing something of much higher value. I would contend that no one in this room is really jonesing to stand in line all day Saturday at Costco. Like, that is not what we live for. Or Walmart, which I actually think is perhaps not even safe. Walmart on a Saturday, it's a dangerous place. So I started this company where I would go into corporations and tell them they need to really, really, really take care of their people and meet them where they're at. Meet them where, their business and their personal is kind of getting a little bit muddy, and realize that they're not droids, they're real human beings, and how can you facilitate them being actually more productive, happier, more well-balanced, and giving more to the corporate environment. And they were willing to underwrite the cost. So we're doing business with huge companies all over the nation, consulting firms, technology firms, you name it. But to start a company like that, I had to fundamentally believe in one thing first. And I had to believe in that creativity trumps cash. I had to believe in that wholeheartedly because I had no cash, right? I started my company on $5,000. It was my life savings. It felt like a lot of money in my 20s, but starting a company that I intend to be a multi-million-dollar enterprise with $5,000. So obviously key for me was to reduce cost. So I had to reduce all costs, not just the business cost, but my living expenses too, right? I quit my job, my good paying job, to be an entrepreneur and go for it. So much to my mother's chagrin, I answered an ad in Creative Loafing for a roommate. So I went to live with a complete stranger. And so my note to all of you, if you are contemplating living in the hood, you should only look at homes during inclement weather. Because then I would have known that I was moving into a house that really should have been condemned, with no air conditioning and no heat, and the roof leaked in every room of the house. But of course, being a female, going to live with a complete stranger who happened to be a guy, my only thought was, he's a little guy, I can take him, right? I mean, right? That's what we all worry about. When it almost came to that when he decided to try to start wearing my clothes. I mean, every girl's got her limits. So the cost, keeping the cost to a bare minimum. I also took a job at night as a hostess at a restaurant. Why a restaurant? Because there's food. So I didn't really want to epitomize the starving entrepreneur, right? So I could buy food at cost, and one meal at a good restaurant could last me 2 or 3 days, right? So reducing cost was tremendous. Market research. We all know you have to do market research. I also knew I couldn't afford market research. So I ended up hiring students from Georgia Tech, writing my own market research, and managing the entire process. And because I didn't really believe just because I built it, they will buy it, right? So the market research, it actually was very, very important in validating my cost structure, the service offerings, so much. So the market research was critical, but finding a way to do it on the cheap was really critical. Office space. Of course, I was working on that table, that makeshift breakfast table at my house, my apartment, in the hood. So I really couldn't bring employees there. I couldn't bring family there. I couldn't bring friends there. The burglar bars should have given it away. So I decided to house my employees on site at my corporate clients. Of course, I told my clients, it makes us much more accessible, because we're right here with you. I didn't say, I can't afford, office space. Technology was really an interesting play. Back in the day, I think way back in the day, there was no internet. So the technology that most of my clients were using was called Lotus Notes. Is anybody familiar with Lotus Notes? Some of you are, and you're not even going to admit it. Some of you are almost as old as I am. You remember Lotus Notes, and it sucked. You're absolutely right. Yes. However, it was what all my clients were using, right? So if my clients are using it, and my access to a computer was borrowing my stepdad's computer when he wasn't using it. So I thought, well, if they're using Lotus Notes and I got them to let us office on site, I'll build my system in Lotus Notes and house it on their server. And then when I expanded to all of their other offices across the nation, now all of my employees were networked together on their dime. Good thinking, huh? So, you seeing a trend? I was pretty cheap. But one thing that was really interesting that I started to learn through this process is the importance of making fearless requests. I started to realize that there was really no harm in asking, I would sit there and think, what's the worst possible thing that could happen? The worst. So I actually wrote contracts that were completely front-loaded because, how am I going to run the first payroll unless I get paid from my client prior to payroll day, right? We figured out how to office them. We wrote that into the contract. Might as well write in office supplies. I wrote in how many paper clips and pencils and paper pads of paper that this client had to provide us. It just facilitated us doing our work, and it saved me a few bucks, right? So fearless request, asking for anything. One client I found out studied how my clients paid, and I started recognizing that they would budget, and then once that fiscal year was over, if they haven't spent that budget, that money magically disappears. They need to spend that money. So I had a client that I knew had budgeted for our service. They had not launched yet, so there was money there in the budget. I asked them if they would like a 1% discount for paying early. Paying an entire 12 months in advance and they get 1%, they should have smacked me, right? They should have. But they said, that's a great idea. And I said, great, sign here. And they said, where are you going? I said, going shopping. I just got a 6-figure check. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. Who does that? But if I hadn't have asked, it would have never happened. One of my very classic cost-cutting measures was what I refer to as the chicken bucket. I believed when I was a 20-something-year-old person starting a company, and I looked like I was about 12, that one way to really, and it had no marketing budget, right? One way to really market the service was through PR. Anybody in PR here? Just a handful, right? He's giving me the look like, don't say anything bad about my industry. So, because he will appreciate this, we all believe everything we read, right? Right? He's like, yeah, if I wrote it, you better believe it. So, if I could get a lot of press about our company, and as Shireen mentioned, Wall Street Journal, Fox, CNN, HGTV, Inc. magazine, on and on and on. This is a snapshot of a wall of some of our press. I actually got us, my goal was to make sure that we were in the local newspaper of every location where we were launching service. So San Francisco, Dallas, Houston, Portland, everywhere, right? And we did. And without a PR budget, without any marketing budget, the way we did this was I sent them a chicken bucket. So you're supposed to say, what's a chicken bucket, Andrea? Thank you. A chicken bucket is exactly what it sounds like without the chicken. It's a Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket, and I would get it for free. I didn't. It was unused. There were no chicken stains on it because that's just gross. So I would fill it with toys because I realized that media people are like kids. They're just taller. So you fill it with toys, and every toy had something to do with our services, right? So I would have like this big old spider that says, we'll meet the exterminator at your house. Then I'd have like Matchbox cars and say, we'll take your car to the shop. So I filled it with all of these toys, and then I wrote, if they may be lazy media people, and so I went ahead and wrote them an article about what else, my company, and tried to hand deliver the chicken bucket to every person that I thought should be writing a story about us. Of course, I never got past the receptionist or security sometimes. But every single person who received a chicken bucket, which cost me $19.95 with all the contents included, chicken buckets were actually free. Every single person wrote a story about our company. Nobody printed my story because I'm not a good writer. I should have called one of you. But every single person who received a chicken bucket wrote a story. Learning moment, okay? What is your chicken bucket, right? How do you attract that type of media attention on the cheap? I also learned early on the importance of creating a culture. I learned that if you do not create your corporate culture, that chasm will be filled, and a culture will be created for you, and probably one that you're not that proud of. Now, I started my company in my 20s. What did I know about building a corporate culture? Unfortunately, having put myself through university, I learned a lot about what not to do. At least I had that knowledge, right? I had been parts of corporate cultures that I wasn't so proud of. Then I took a step back and I really started examining the employees that came to work for me. I created an environment where every single employee took a pay cut to come work for our company. They took a pay cut to come work at a place where they believed they could make a difference. We were single-handedly supporting the entire food service industry because every single employee was waiting tables and hostessing at night so that they could afford to work with us during the day because they believed they were part of something bigger than themselves. They believed they were making a difference. I didn't get to pay them such low wages forever, but it was really an important message. They also understood that they worked for a company where their founder was like half the age of everybody else's founder. And they understood that meant that we had to be better, head and shoulders above all of our competitors. And they were willingly ready to step up to that challenge. Perfect example, one of my employees showed up at the parking garage to go to work one day. And his, hi, how are you? Good to see you. He showed up at the parking garage and he realized that his parking they had not received the check for his monthly parking. We paid for his parking out of corporate. Well, he was in Texas and we're in Atlanta. So he called, yeah, we've paid it. And so he said to the parking attendant, is like, well, you could pay a daily rate, it's $8 a day. And he's like, no, my boss has paid the parking. And they're like, well, if you don't have your sticker, we can't let you park. He goes, okay, look, so I made some brownies, and how about I gave you some brownies and you let me park for free. My employee was bartering brownies, and they weren't those kind of brownies. for those of you who were thinking that. They were just regular brownies because he felt like spending $8 out of his petty cash or on his corporate credit card was taking $8 out of my purse. Like he just felt that committed to the cause. So to build a culture where employees did that was so significant and put us head and shoulders above our competitors. Another thing, I realized that my employees were all about recognition, and recognition didn't mean, like, you can pay people in a number of ways. There's monetary compensation, but there's emotional compensation, which meant the world to my people. So we would start every conference call with what we called company lore. So every conference call we start would be taking a moment to tell a story about one of our team members who happened to be on the call. They didn't have to tell their own story. They were entirely too shy to do that. And it was far more exciting if we were bragging on them. So we would tell stories, and all the other concierge could hear the story. This is a guy doing the same job that you're doing, and how he took it to the next level. How can you take it to the next level? I remember telling a story about this super shy concierge in Austin, Texas. In Austin, Texas. Middle of summer, crazy hot in Austin, right? He went into the house, the client was out of town, he was supposed to go in and just bring in the mail. He brings in the mail, and he walks in, and the house is scorching hot. The client's out of town, and the air conditioning's broken. Well, the client would have no way of knowing his air conditioning is broken. This concierge happened to know that this client kept all of her wine on the top floor of her 4-story condo. So of course he called, we had good relationships with AC repair people, and he got a repair guy coming out the next day. Well, the next day, that's too late. So he walked and hand carried every bottle of wine from the top floor to the basement for this client, and probably would have never told anyone except because of all the extra time. He was running a little bit late, so he wanted us to work, call his next client and try to rearrange his schedule. Otherwise, he would have done it completely without telling us. That's a culture where people feel like they're really invested in doing something to make a difference. I also learned that it was really important to know our place in the marketplace, to be crystal clear on our position in the marketplace, and to live and die by your brand. One example for us, other than the fact that I'm wearing a bright colored dress because it's part of my branding and it'll make Julie happy, but another thing that was really important, our position in the marketplace, we are the high-touch service providers. Some people in our space do phone and web-based services. They find it not scalable to travel all over the United States and hire and train highly skilled concierge all over the nation. I agree. I was a bit of a gypsy traveling around hiring and training most of these folks. But it was important because we are the high-touch provider, right? So early on, I started, once the internet came about, a lot of people in our space got really interested in e-commerce. And they would add to their website. First there was a bunch of banner ads on all of our competitors' websites. And then there was this e-commerce play where if you went to their website and you wanted a red sweater from the Gap, you could click out to the Gap and get a red sweater. And if it came through their website, then the Gap would kick back a percentage, 1% of that sale or whatever, to my competitor. So all my employees were going, boss, this is an opportunity. This is an additional revenue stream. And I thought long and hard about it, right? Not only the cost of building the technology to do that, but is that who we are? I just kept asking, is that who we are? If someone asked us for a red sweater at the Gap, what would that look like? And to us, as the high-touch provider, what that looks like is us saying, well, there's 3 different red sweaters at the Gap. There are different shades of red. So we've bought all 3 of them and hand-delivered them to your office so that you could see which one you like better, and then we'll take the other 2 back. Or is this a gift in which case we'll go buy it, we'll hand wrap it, we'll hand deliver it to your friend as a surprise. Right? That's who we are. That's our position in the marketplace. So this e-commerce thing, even if it is a huge opportunity for additional revenue, it's just not who we are. It is imperative that we stay true to that. So living your brand is paramount. Being an entrepreneur is very humbling. It's a huge opportunity for you to realize how much you don't know. On occasion, though, I had to remind myself that you might actually know more than you think you know, right? And all of you find yourself in that place. Every day you know what you don't know, some of us more than others. But it's also important that you realize you probably know more than you think. I realized that I don't have to know everything. I was very relieved to know that I don't have to know everything. I just have to have a team of people who everybody knows their piece, right? But more importantly, it's a team of people who are willing to be part of a team. You know, some people, they do their thing, they don't want to be part of a team. I really needed to put together a team of people who were experts in their field, but also who were 120% committed to my success and the success of the company, because those two were so intertwined. People who believed in our ability as a company. People who were passionate about telling people that they know. My accountant, who doesn't really talk to anybody, is willing to tell people about our services. So, and collaborate with the attorney and the marketing department, et cetera. And everyone working together to form a board of people who are really putting the company first. I also really felt that I needed a peer group, a peer organization. Right, James? And James and I are in Entrepreneur Organization, which is an international organization, and we're members of the Atlanta chapter of EO. As I say, and you guys will look at James real odd when I say this, these are the only guys who have walked in my Manolo Blahniks, right? I mean, they are fellow entrepreneurs who have built their companies, and they know my struggles. They're probably also the only ones who could tell me I'm completely full of shit and I'd actually listen to them. Right? So having the support of a peer group who've been there, done that, who you can aspire, who will push you a little bit further and you can aspire to be like, was critical. And I also learned that everyone believes in the American dream, right? Everyone here, we believe in the American dream. We want to see people succeed, and we want to be a part of that. Whatever small role we can play in helping someone else succeed, we want to do that. So it was really interesting to me to be able to see that, to see people jump in to help me. Back to the fearless request, right? You wouldn't think to ask people, but people are willing. They're willing to help people who help themselves. If you're sitting back with a handout, I have people call me every week. Business advice, I want to join the concierge industry. Can you send me a copy of your business plan? No. That's an easy no. Yeah. There's this thing called the internet, a lot of information out there. You've looked up none of it. So no, I will not be helping you. Go get a real job. Because it's much easier. So anyway, it's really interesting. People want to help people who help themselves. Sales strategy. It was really interesting early on when I first started my company, right out of college practically. I realized that consultants need our service, right? They're traveling, they're working crazy hours, they hate their lives. They're not allowed to admit it, but they hate their lives. And how can I make their life a little bit better, right? I can give them back their entire weekend. So initially, we started selling to, it was PricewaterhouseCoopers, Accenture, which was then Anderson Consulting, Ernst & Young. They're all clients of ours. I started studying how do they buy things. At that time, most of them were buying things regionally. So I would sell the South region, the West Coast region, the Northeast, the Midwest. sell each of the regions. Some of them would PwC would buy nationally. Ernst & Young would buy nationally. Nationally, they apparently thought Canada was part of the same, we're the same island, right? So they all think we're all together. One big continent, so bring it on, I'll take Canada too. So we're selling all of North America to some of the big hitters. I thought, and everyone did at the time, thought consultants, the consulting industry, 7 foot tall and bulletproof, right? No, not exactly. They kind of hit the skids there for a bit, and I lost $4 million worth of business in a matter of 6 months. Because we were so in bed with consulting, and who wouldn't be, honestly. It was a very important lesson on the importance of diversifying our portfolio. Because consultants weren't the only one who needed more time, right? Everybody in this room needs more time. Everybody did something this weekend that they could have offloaded to us to give them more personal time. We could have gone to Costco for everybody, right? Much less painful. So the importance of diversifying our portfolio and going to large corporations that were in all different industries. We rode those waves. We rode the technology wave. I had a corporate apartment in California. We started showing up to client sites and the doors are boarded shut. Literally. Oh, I don't think we work here anymore. Similar story at Enron and Arthur Andersen. Some of you guys know that story. Yes, we actually walked in on the shredding of documents. Yeah, that was one of our last days there. And then how do you get to all of those companies? Well, then I figured out I could devise kind of channels, resellers, if you will. I found companies that were not competing companies, but they were in similar spaces to the concierge space, like work-life, employee assistance programs. People were asking them for our services. They weren't going to build this beast, right? So I could negotiate a relationship with them and get them to sell our services. Never mind, they have 100 salespeople. I had one very good one, but it was just me. So, I mean, to get them to go out there and sell for us, that's huge. They can get me into Levi Strauss and Discovery Communications, you name it. They're getting me in doors I couldn't open myself, right? So that was really huge. And then, of course, really defining the industries, understanding that for a while, technology was huge. You got to see the end of that train coming, right? What's the next train? Healthcare was huge. Healthcare was really getting pummeled by customer satisfaction ratings being so low. How do you get customer satisfaction ratings up? By providing them extra services like concierge to the patients and the patient families, right? And there's a nursing shortage. How do you get nurses, female heads of the household, who are working and still responsible for everything going on at the house? What would make them happier than to have a concierge service, right? And then healthcare got a little shaky. Everybody's a little bit nervous about Obamacare. Maybe there might be another train coming by for us to jump on, right? So finding the right industries at the right time was really critical to our success, as well as the diversification. And then really, obviously, we have to reinvent yourself. I always told my employees during down times, the number one thing that we as a small company have over our competitors is nimble, our ability to be nimble, right? We can ebb and flow and move and bob and weave better than any of the big guys. And we better exercise that. We better demonstrate that, right? So being able to redefine yourself. When I first started, we were a work-life balance company, right? People were buying it, work-life balance. You need to balance work and life. Now, the media they don't buy that. So we're not doing, he's not doing work-life balance anymore. So then it was like, okay. Then it was recruiting and retention, especially in the world of technology, right? Recruiting and retention was huge. So how do we get the best and the brightest? And how do we get them to stay? Then it became productivity. They're laying off people. The best message that you can give to the people that get to keep their job, you can send them one message, which could be keep your head down and hope you're not next, not the best message for HR to send them. Or perhaps you could say, we value you even more than we did before. And we realize you're doing the job of probably 10 people, and we want to help you out with that. So redefining who you are. My employees used to say, I used to liken us to Madonna. Do you remember, not Madonna, not Madonna, but Madonna the singer, right? And not the holy Madonna. But didn't it feel like Madonna would she was like the genius of reinventing herself, right? Material Girl and all of the rest. You guys have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay. That's good. You should get out more. So anyway, that was what was really critical to our success, is to be able to totally reposition ourselves and have the quantitative data behind it to really sell it. So one of the last things I wanted to talk about is, some of you know that I built my company from zero to a national company, and then I sold it. And then I had to had to transition and do a workout there. And I had a huge opportunity to kind of decide what I wanted to do when I grow up, right? Some of you probably guessed I realized that I decided not to grow up. But, it was really an interesting place for me, because it was an opportunity for me to think, well, what are the opportunities, right? You've been heads down building this business for 20 years. You never looked up to say, what am I going to do next? There is no next, right? So it was really hard to be open to the opportunities. To meet people who wanted me to run their business, to meet people who wanted me to lead their sales team, to meet people who were willing to bring me into their organization when everyone knows entrepreneurs, y'all kind of go all rogue on us, But so to be open to those opportunities was interesting and important for my own personal growth. And to have the luxury, and it is a luxury, to take a step back and even get to decide. Think about the people who are in positions because they have to be, that they don't get the luxury of deciding. So I was really fortunate to have that opportunity. And in that time, I realized how very passionate I am about doing this. Here's a quote for me. Someone asked me why I would re-enter this industry, and I said, well, who gets a do-over? Who gets an opportunity to combine 25 plus years of experience in an industry that I love with, now I've recently built the technology that is really the most lacking aspect of our industry. So to combine today's technology with all of that experience to give this industry that I'm passionate about exactly what the industry needs. Early on, I told you that the reason that I built this company was because I was passionate about making a difference in people's lives. And 25 years later, I still am. So if that's something that, much to my mom's chagrin, I built this company because I believed in it. She kept going, why? And I said, well, if I don't do it, I'll just die. Of course, pretty melodramatic for a 24-year-old, but I really believe that. And that's what it takes. It takes that in your career, in a corporate job. It takes that to succeed in a career as an entrepreneur. Do you have that passion? And if you do, and you're willing to work your absolute behind off, then how could you be anything but successful? Okay, there. Thank you. So I have time, I think, to take questions, but only easy ones. I'm just going to skip you if you ask a hard one. Yes, my friend. So his question was, I was instructed to repeat the question. His question was, other than devising a budget for starting your business, what is your other biggest challenge? Apparently that was the wrong answer. For me, the biggest challenge was getting comfortable with the fact that I don't have to know everything. That was really hard for me because I felt like I have to lead. Here's going to be a group of people and they're going to follow me into fire. And I have to know absolutely everything. No, I don't. I was really smart. My first employees were people who did better than me at Georgia Tech. My classmates who were way smarter than me, I thought would be good hires. They thought I worked entirely too hard and went back to corporate America, but they were good first hires. Yes, sir? It is. So his question is, how do you break into new industries if they've never heard of your industry before? They don't. It's like I always say, I never knew I needed a housekeeper until I got a housekeeper. Now, you could probably take my Porsche, but don't take my housekeeper, right? Because now I know I need a housekeeper. I can't live without her, right? And the same with our industry, right? People can run their own errands. They can. So why do they need our service? So really, to break into new industries, consulting was, I found this one industry who really needed us, and the way I got into consulting initially was I found out that they had an employee survey coming out, and the employees were actually going to tell the truth and say that they hated life as a consultant, and the turnover was crazy high, right? So, hey, tell me when that survey is coming out. So I can call your HR department directly following that and tell them, you really need our service. And then consulting is kind of incestuous. Like when you sell Accenture, you can go across the street to Deloitte and go, well, you kind of have to, don't you? And PricewaterhouseCoopers and McKinsey and Ernst & Young, right? So that was not easy, but that made sense. Ernst & Young saw us coming, right? And they had been hearing from people about our service at their competitors. But James is right, getting into an industry where they don't even know you exist. So for us, it was really about the ROI. Could we convince them, like right now we sell on productivity, can we convince them that we're going to increase their productivity? So we have we actually track the amount of time that we save people, or the time it takes us to do their errands in the middle of their work day while they're conceivably working, right? We know they're at work. We hope they're working while they're at work. So we can go back to USAA Insurance, 18,000 employees. We know who their average user of Concierge is. We know exactly how many hours we build running their errands in the middle of their work day. So they know what the actual compensation of those people, of these users. So we can back into an ROI solely based on productivity, right? We saved you X number of hours this month in productivity. So your people were not taking off work to meet the plumber. They were not taking an extra long lunch to get their oil change. They were actually eating, which would be good for them to do during lunch, right? So we can give them an ROI on productivity. So to bring that to them and show them that the service pays for it. It was 146% ROI in the first year of service. As the service, goes on, each year it's going to get better. People are going to use it more and more and more. And that's just on productivity. So we're also positively impacting their recruiting, their retention, their work-life balance, their morale, right? They're not real eager to give us their turnover rates, so we can't get a strong ROI on turnover. But on productivity, that's huge. It more than pays for itself just on productivity alone. Good question. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. That's a great question. Where do we see TaskRabbit and those types of companies fitting into the scheme of things? Some of you who don't know, TaskRabbit is a company that does basically you can go to the website and you can hire people to do whatever you want them to do. That's apparently legal and moral. And it's individuals who are bidding on that opportunity. So, hey, can you go to IKEA and pick up a dresser for me? Because can't schlep it myself, right? If I have IKEA ship it, it's going to cost me $150. And there's all these people who'll go, I'll pick it up for $25. I'll deliver it to your house for $20. I'll do it for $19.99. You know, all these people, and then you can pick the lowest bidder. Obviously, there is a limit to what you would allow this stranger to do for you. Only thing you know is that they're available in the middle of the workday, right? Maybe because they just got out of the pen. I don't know, but I'm not going to have them drive my car or come to my house, or interact with my nanny or my daughter, right? Corporations would never outsource to a TaskRabbit because of that, because of the liability aspects. So we are more in the B2B space. We sell to corporations, not directly to consumers, because definitely they can drive the price down. I mean, it's a commodity business in the consumer space. Yes, ma'am. That newfangled internet really screwed things up for us, right? No, actually, we embrace the internet wholeheartedly. And it's really interesting when you're in a space that's relatively small, like ours. There's probably less than probably half a dozen major players in our space. So it's easy to keep tabs on what everybody else is doing, and knock on wood, we're head and shoulders above the rest regarding SEO and regarding our use of social media. So we have an entire campaign, and it's very elaborate how you leverage LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and the types of messaging and kind of the nuances of it all. Perfect example, one thing we would have never done before. The interest around millennials in the workplace is huge now, right? So we've recently sponsored a survey around what is important in the workplace to millennials. Now we will have on our website an opportunity for HR, we sell mostly to HR directors, for HR directors to go to our website, provide us their email information so that we can send them the results of our survey. Well, so we have now, it's not a push, it's a push and pull that we didn't have before. It's a conversation. It's not just us blasting stuff at them, right? We can get so much more mileage out of our media, like when you're on CNN, when you got that playing all over the place, on all your social media channels, that's huge. We didn't have that opportunity before, right? And fortunately, we're doing better than all of our competitors, and our keywords are not that expensive, right? So it's a little bit easier now for a company in California to hear about us, although they still think we don't wear shoes because we're from Atlanta. But, at least they know we exist, whereas before, unless they knew a company that had our service, they didn't know we even existed. Anyone else? You can tell I'm losing my voice, right? So make it a good one. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.